According to the National Institutes of Health, 12.5% of Americans have at least one phobia. That's 41 million Americans. But you very rarely hear people talk about their phobias. Why is that? Well, it's probably because everyone thinks that their phobia is weird. But after watching this video, you'll realise that there is nothing weird about your phobia. Because I'm going to show you 10 really unusual phobias and give you some facts about what might cause these phobias and phobias in general. So let's get into it. First, ovinophobia. Animal phobias are very common, with cynophobia, or fear of dogs, being the most common. But a friend of mine had a traumatic experience with a sheep. She was a little girl at the time and visited a farm with her father. A sheep, who was probably feeling overly protective of her lambs, charged at her and her father. What made it worse was that her father ran away, leaving her to be mowed down by the sheep. The experience led to her developing ovinophobia. You see, many phobias start in childhood with a traumatic event. Globophobia, a fear of balloons, is very common, and while people who don't have it may find it hard to understand why someone would be scared of balloons, this phobia actually makes a lot of sense. We are born with just two fears: falling and loud noises. An experiment by the University of Alberta found that a bursting balloon can reach 168 decibels, louder than a 12-gauge shot bullet, so it's no surprise that it would frighten a child. While we might all be startled by a popping balloon, most of us soon forget the incident. But if the trauma is frequently repeated, often by cruel siblings, then the fear is reinforced. You see, repeated fear events can start phobias. Palatophobia is a fear of bald people, and I have witnessed firsthand how this phobia can develop. A couple of years ago, we were having a family lunch in a pub when a fight broke out involving a bald tattooed guy. The guys were arrested and I thought nothing more of it. But over the next few months, I noticed my 8-year-old daughter becoming anxious around bald tattooed people, including my friend and jiu-jitsu training partner, Richie, who, to be fair, is a bit scary. Luckily, I was able to teach my daughter some things that stopped the phobia developing, and now she is fine, even with Richie. But interestingly, my 10-year-old son, who witnessed the same incident, was not affected at all. And this may be because some people are genetically more prone to phobias and anxiety than others. Next is linonophobia, a fear of string. This is a rare and very unusual phobia, and often the cause of it is unknown. But one possibility is a traumatic event that involves rope or string. But another possibility is that the fear originally stemmed from another item, like a snake. This is called fear generalization, and it was proven in 1920 when a rather unethical psychologist called John B. Watson deliberately invoked a fear of white rats in a 9-month-old child. The child's fear generalized to include fur coats, cotton wool, and even a Father Christmas mask. Generalization might be the reason why many people can't remember what caused their phobia. Hippopotamonstrosis equipedalophobia. Yes. This phobia is a fear of long words. This is usually a type of social phobia because they worry about embarrassing themselves by incorrectly pronouncing a long word. It shows how some phobias are actually linked to other anxieties or insecurities. A truly modern phobia is nomophobia. It is a fear of having no mobile phone. No-mo-phobia. Can you see what they did there? Again, this is another fear that may be linked to other fears or insecurities. For example, people who suffer panic attacks often feel that their phone is essential in case they need to be rescued. So it's really the panic attack that they fear, but the lack of a phone may cause them to have a panic attack, so they fear that also. Somnophobia is a fear of sleep. This phobia usually has an underlying cause, which may be psychological or physiological. For example, sleep disorders like narcolepsy, sleep paralysis, or sleep apnea could cause a fear of going to sleep, as could night terrors or nightmares. Again, it may be linked to anxiety disorders like panic disorder or generalized anxiety disorder. Incidentally, if you suffer from either of these, check out my playlists on those subjects. Phobophobia is a fear of teenagers or adolescents. This may come from a bad experience with teenagers, or it may just come from irrational beliefs like all teenagers are dangerous, and again may be more common in people who have other anxiety issues. Avoidance of places where teenagers may be fuels the fear and reinforces the belief that teenagers are dangerous. At the core of all phobias is an irrational belief and avoidance behaviours. It's not just the feeling of being in danger that can trigger a phobia. Other emotions can too. Venustrophobia, a fear of beautiful women, may develop as a result of being jilted by a beautiful woman, or by being rejected by a beautiful woman. The negative emotions can be so strong that they start avoiding beautiful women, and as we have learned already, avoidance is the fuel of phobias. Finally, emetophobia, a fear of vomiting, is a very common phobia, and like many phobias, it can limit your life. And you will inevitably have to face your fear at some point. Many years ago, a young lady came to see me because her fear of vomit was putting her off having a baby, because as we all know, babies do tend to be sick a lot. Thankfully, I was able to help her, and she overcame her fear. Which leads to my last fact. Phobias can be cured. When I had my practice, I found a combination of cognitive behavioral therapy and hypnotherapy was the most effective way of curing phobias. And once phobias have gone, they don't usually come back. But most people who have a phobia will just try to avoid their fear all their lives. And if you want to know why that's not a good idea, then watch this video here.